Grange Hill, 1978, was once the school drama that took Britain by storm. But 45 years later, the behind-the-scenes stories are even more shocking than the script itself. Some actors underwent so much surgery they became nearly unrecognizable. Others passed away from illness and loneliness, and some now live quietly in the shadow of their faded fame. You won't believe how much they've changed by 2025. Stuart Organ as Mr. Robson. Stuart Organ was born on November 8, 1951, in Bromley, Kent, England. At 26 years old, he appeared in Grange Hill, 1978, as PE teacher Peter Robson, a strict, composed man with a hidden kindness. For 15 seasons, he became a symbol of discipline and dedication, a familiar face for generations of viewers who grew up with the show. When the school bell at Grange Hill finally rang for the last time, Stuart entered a turbulent new phase of his life. He tried his hand at Doctor Who, 1987, and Brookside, but the shadow of Mr. Robson followed him everywhere. His career began to stagnate, forcing him to take on small parts and perform in local theater just to keep his name alive. 2 decades of relentless work left his body exhausted. Stress, insomnia, and chronic stomach pain became his constant companions. His marriage to Julia Kehoe in 2002 was one of the few bright spots in his life. However, in the following years, Stuart was diagnosed with cancer, a disease that slowly drained his strength. Though he continued acting and doing voice work, his health deteriorated steadily. He stopped making public appearances, choosing instead to quietly retreat to the Isle of Wight, spending his final years with his family and putting his affairs in order. Sadly, Stuart Organ passed away on February 15, 2024, at the age of 72. The cause was complications from late-stage cancer. He left behind an estimated net worth of $69.9 million, accumulated from decades in television, theater, and real estate investments. Gwyneth Powell as Mrs. McCluskey. Gwyneth Powell was born on July 5, 1946, in Levensholme, Manchester, England. When she joined Grange Hill in 1981 at the age of 35, she played headmistress Bridget McCluskey, a steely, stern but fair woman who became an enduring symbol of authority and compassion. She represented a generation of strong female figures in British television during the 1980s. When the show ended, Gwyneth faced a major void in her career. The overwhelming success of her role made it difficult to escape the label of the TV headmistress. Although she later appeared in Hollyoaks, Heartbeat, Father Brown, and Man Down, most of her roles were small and easily overlooked. As the work offers declined, she fell into mild depression and withdrew from public life for several years. Once a household name, she slowly became a quiet woman who rediscovered herself only through small local theater productions of classic plays. Her private life, however, was peaceful beside her husband, actor Alan Leith, whom she had married in 1971. The couple never had children and chose to live simply in Hurstpierpoint, West Sussex. But her health gradually declined due to a chronic intestinal illness. After what seemed like a routine abdominal surgery, severe complications arose, leaving her in great pain and causing rapid weight loss. On September 8, 2022, Gwyneth Powell passed away at Brighton Hospital at the age of 76. Her death coincided with the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, sending shockwaves across Britain. Her estimated net worth was $1.5 million, mostly from her long career in television and theater. Nicholas Donnelly as Mr. Mackenzie. Nicholas Donnelly was born on March 13, 1938, in Kensington, London, England. At 47 years old, he appeared in Grange Hill, 1985, as teacher Craig Mackenzie, a calm, friendly, and respected educator. He became one of the show's most enduring faces, embodying the image of a kind mentor in the often harsh world of adolescence. When the lights of Grange Hill dimmed, Nicholas entered a long and turbulent chapter of his life. Though he had once found great success playing Sergeant Johnny Wills in Dixon of Dock Green, a television series that ran for over 20 years, he gradually disappeared from major productions. During the 1990s, acting jobs became scarce, and he was forced to accept minor roles in lesser-known TV shows. Years of constant work, mounting stress, and advancing age began to take a toll on his health. In his personal life, Nicholas went through one failed marriage before finding peace with his second wife, Donnelly, whom he met while serving in the army in Germany. They married in 1959, had 4 children, and lived a simple, quiet life together for more than 6 decades. Despite that happiness, his declining health remained a constant struggle. Age, combined with chronic heart disease, led to multiple hospitalizations during his final years. On January 9, 2022, Nicholas Donnelly passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 83. The cause of death was determined to be heart complications brought on by age and exhaustion. He left behind an estimated net worth of around $2 million, mostly from Dixon of Dock Green royalties and his television pension, Terry Supat as Benny Green. Terry Supat was born on September 19, 1964, in Islington, London, England. At just 14 years old, he became Benny Green in Grange Hill, 1978. The show's first black student and a symbol of equality and courage. From 1978 to 1982, Terry was a trailblazer, paving the way for future generations of black actors on British television. With his bright smile, clear eyes, and confident manner, he became a childhood icon for an entire generation. When the studio lights went out, Terry's life took a dark turn. The boy who had once been adored nationwide was soon crushed by the weight of early fame. Without formal training or guidance, Terry drifted through adulthood, taking small roles in Cardiac Arrest, 1994, and The Fifth Element, 1997. But his career never recovered. Behind his tough exterior was a lonely soul, collapsing under the pressure of fame. Long, solitary nights in London led him to cocaine and alcohol as his only escape. Love and marriage eluded him. He lived alone, without family or children. His world gradually shrank to the small flat in Walthamstow, where isolation and depression took hold. By the time he reached 50, his health had deteriorated. Addiction and despair consumed him, and he quietly vanished from public life. In May 2015, Terry's body was found in his apartment. Police determined he had likely been dead for several weeks. There were no signs of foul play, only the lonely death of a man who had once brought joy to a generation. He was 50 years old and left behind an estimated net worth of $500,000 from Grange Hill royalties. Michael Sheard as Mr. Bronson. Michael Sheard was born on June 18, 1938, in Aberdeen, Scotland. At 47 years old, he joined Grange Hill, 1985, as Maurice Bronson, the stern, intimidating deputy headmaster and Latin teacher. He became one of the most feared and respected figures on British television, immortalized as the quintessential school villain, a legendary role in the history of UK drama. After leaving Grange Hill, Michael continued an extraordinary career in film and television. He appeared as Admiral Ozzel in Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, 1980, had recurring roles in Doctor Who, and even portrayed Adolf Hitler and Heinrich Himmler in more than 8 different productions. Yet behind the brilliance of his many villainous roles lay a life marked by isolation and pressure. Being typecast as the on-screen dictator made it difficult for him to find different roles, leading to increasing mental strain. His marriage to Rosalind Moyer in 1961 was his one true comfort. The couple had 3 children and settled on the Isle of Wight, where he sought peace in his later years. However, after more than 40 years of dedication to acting, cancer quietly entered his life. In 2005, he was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and his health deteriorated so rapidly that he could no longer attend Star Wars fan events, gatherings where he had long been a beloved guest. On August 31st, 2005, Michael Sheard passed away at his home on the Isle of Wight at the age of 67. His death deeply moved the British film and television community. His net worth was estimated at $1.8 million, largely from Star Wars royalties and television work. George Armstrong as Alan Humphreys. George Armstrong was born on September 7, 1962, in London, England. At just 16 years old, he joined Grange Hill, 1978, as Alan Humphreys, a mischievous, impulsive but kind-hearted student who often helped his friends out of trouble. For 5 seasons, Alan became a symbol of rebellious yet compassionate youth, reflecting the lives and struggles of British teenagers. After saying goodbye to Grange Hill, George quickly realized that acting was not a lifelong path. Following small roles in Tucker's Luck, 1983, and The Bill, 1989, he stepped away from acting to work in the technology and healthcare industries, fields far removed from television but more stable. However, the corporate life brought him little happiness. The loneliness of high-pressure office work and the pain of being forgotten after fame made him increasingly withdrawn and quiet. By his 40s, he began experiencing health issues but dismissed them as simple fatigue from overwork, rarely visiting doctors. As time passed, the exhaustion turned out to be a symptom of something far worse: leukemia. The diagnosis came too late, leaving him with few treatment options. George spent his final months in hospital, losing his hair from chemotherapy, his body frail and unrecognizable from the lively schoolboy he once was. Unmarried and childless, he was cared for by a few close friends and relatives. George Armstrong passed away on July 11, 2023, in London at the age of 60, after years of battling leukemia. His estimated net worth was around £300,000, which he left to his beloved niece, Lee Whitlock, as Beast. Lee Whitlock was born on April 17, 1968, in England. At 18 years old, he joined Grange Hill, 1986, as Beast, a rebellious, brash student who, deep down, had a kind heart. The character remains unforgettable for viewers, thanks to his mix of recklessness and humanity, a reflection of British youth in the 1980s. After leaving Grange Hill, Lee continued acting, appearing in EastEnders, The Bill, and especially Two of Us, 1987. A groundbreaking television film that tackled homosexuality with rare compassion and courage. Yet the fame didn't last. During the 1990s, Lee struggled to find stability, caught between small, scattered roles and a tiring personal life. The pressure of the industry, disappointment from never landing a major lead role, and an unhealthy lifestyle left him physically and emotionally drained. Unmarried and without children, Lee dedicated his entire life to his craft. But when the stage lights went out, he lived reclusively, fighting a silent battle with heart disease brought on by years of neglecting his health. Instead of a long, glittering career, he lived quietly, taking breaks, then returning for brief guest appearances in shows like Casualty and London's Burning. On February 17, 2023, Lee Whitlock passed away from heart disease at the age of 54, just months after finishing a small television project. His estimated net worth was around $800,000, mostly from royalties of his earlier work. His passing left fans shocked and heartbroken. Laura Sadler as Judy Jeffries. Laura Sadler was born on December 25, 1980, in Ascot, Berkshire, England. At just 17 years old, she appeared in Grange Hill, 1997, as Judy Jeffries, a clever, mischievous, and brave student featured in more than 40 episodes. The role made audiences fall in love with her gentle eyes and radiant smile, setting the stage for a promising career as one of British television's rising stars. After leaving Grange Hill, Laura quickly ascended to fame with her portrayal of Nurse Sandy Harper in Holby City, 2000 to 2003. Her character, a young, dedicated, and strong nurse, became beloved nationwide. But behind her success lay the exhaustion and pressures of her early 20s. Grueling filming schedules, the chaotic showbiz lifestyle, and endless parties began to wear her down mentally and physically. At 22 years old, while dating her co-star George Khalil, Laura's life took a tragic turn. After a late-night party at her boyfriend's flat in Holland Park, she fell from a 12-meter balcony, suffering a severe head injury and slipping into a coma. Doctors confirmed there was no chance of recovery. Her family made the heartbreaking decision to remove life support. 4 days later, Laura took her final breath on June 19, 2003, at the age of 22. Laura's death shocked the entire nation. The BBC aired the final 8 episodes of Holby City featuring her before broadcasting an emotional farewell. At the time of her passing, her net worth was estimated at around $200,000, mostly from her role as Sandy Harper. Though gone far too soon, Laura Sadler remains remembered as a talented, beautiful, and kind-hearted actress. Lee Macdonald as Zamo Maguire. Lee Macdonald was born on June 21, 1968, in Hackney, London, England. At just 14 years old, he joined Grange Hill, 1982, as Zamo Maguire, the friendly, lively student who gradually spiraled into heroin addiction, one of the most shocking storylines in British television history. Over 6 seasons, Lee fully embodied the tragedy of youth lost to drugs, helping the Just Say No campaign spread across the UK. After leaving Grange Hill, Lee struggled to escape the shadow of Zamo the Addict. He took roles in EastEnders and The Bill before turning to professional boxing, determined to prove he could rise again. But repeated injuries forced him to retire early. That defeat was harder than any punch he had ever taken. With no acting jobs and no boxing ring to return to, Lee found himself working in the service industry, spending years as a locksmith to make ends meet. The fame that once brought him cheers was now just a distant memory, revived only when someone recognized Zamo from the old days. Just when life seemed to have closed its doors, love brought him peace. After years of being single, Lee got engaged to Jess in 2020 and married her in 2022. The marriage gave him a stability he had never known in his youth. But fate struck again. In 2024, Lee was diagnosed with skin cancer, a result of years of boxing under the sun without protection. Surgery left deep scars on his face, changing the familiar image that had once filled television screens. At 57 years old in 2025, Lee Macdonald still lives in Surrey with his wife, working as a locksmith and taking part in mental health and anti-addiction charity programs. His estimated net worth is around $1 million, mostly from his stable business ventures. Todd Carty as Tucker Jenkins. Todd Carty was born on August 31, 1963, in Willesden, London, England. At just 15 years old, he brought to life Tucker Jenkins in Grange Hill, 1978. The mischievous, impulsive yet good-hearted student who became a symbol of British youth in the 1980s. Across 5 seasons, Tucker became an iconic character who captured the real struggles and spirit of school life. After leaving Grange Hill, Todd continued his role as Tucker in the spin-off series Tucker's Luck, 1983 to 1985, before embarking on a long and turbulent acting career. In 1990, he achieved nationwide fame as Mark Fowler in EastEnders, a role that lasted 13 years and earned him a British Soap Award. But behind the success came immense pressure. Todd later admitted that by the early 2000s, his heavy filming schedule left him exhausted and mentally unstable. A severe car accident added to his struggles, leaving him seriously injured and suffering from depression. Though he eventually recovered, the trauma pushed him away from the spotlight for years. After regaining his health, Todd returned to the screen as the villainous PC Gabriel Kent in The Bill, 2003 to 2005, then branched out into theater, directing, and even reality TV with Dancing on Ice, 2009. His career remained diverse, but he could never escape the fame of Tucker Jenkins, a character fans loved too much to forget. As a result, He frequently appeared at Grange Hill reunions to honor the show's legacy and thank his lifelong fans. In 2025, at the age of 62, Todd Carty continues to act on stage and direct alongside his wife, actress Dinah Handley, whom he married in 1990. The couple have 2 sons and live in North London in a home filled with film memorabilia. With an estimated net worth of $8 million, Todd says what he values most isn't wealth. It's the lasting love from audiences who still remember the legendary Tucker. Susan Tully as Suzanne Ross. Susan Tully was born on October 20, 1967, in Highgate, London, England. At just 14 years old, she appeared in Grange Hill, 1981, as Suzanne Ross, the rebellious, intelligent, and strong-minded student who represented a generation of outspoken young women in early 1980s Britain. Over 4 seasons, Susan created a character that was both tough and deeply human, making her one of the most prominent young faces of BBC's rising era of talent. After leaving Grange Hill, Susan's career soared even higher when she took on the role of Michelle Fowler in EastEnders, 1985 to 1995. A brave single mother who became a symbol of modern womanhood. The role earned her a prestigious British soap award and made her one of the biggest stars in British television. Yet success came with exhaustion. The relentless filming schedule, media scrutiny, and constant public pressure left Susan emotionally drained. By 1995, she made the bold decision to step away from acting, choosing to work behind the camera rather than continue the race for fame. By the late 1990s, Susan reinvented herself as a director. She went on to helm major TV dramas such as The A Word, The Mill, and most notably Line of Duty, the project that earned her a BAFTA nomination. However, behind the achievements lay years of fatigue. The demanding pace of production, creative expectations, and the weight of her own success left her burned out by the mid-2000s. For a period, Susan disappeared entirely from the public eye, retreating to London to focus on restoring her mental health. As of 2025, at 58 years old, Susan Tully remains unmarried, choosing a quiet, independent life dedicated to directing. Her estimated net worth is around $3 million, primarily from her successful television projects. Erkan Mustafa as Roland Browning. Erkan Mustafa was born in 1976 in London, England. At just 6 years old, he joined Grange Hill, 1982, as Roland Browning, the clumsy, shy student with a heart full of kindness. For 6 seasons, Roland's story of isolation, bullying, and the longing for acceptance moved audiences across the country. His portrayal made Erkan a symbol of empathy and one of the most relatable child characters in British television history. After leaving Grange Hill, Erkan tried to sustain his career, but the glow of early fame gradually faded. He appeared in The Bill and Chef, then turned to writing, publishing reflections on his experiences as a television kid swept up in the whirlwind of fame. Though he never won awards, his honesty and humility earned him lasting affection from fans. Yet behind the smiles, Erkan struggled privately with his weight, battling severe obesity through his teenage years, which later led to diabetes. Fortunately, Erkan found stability through family life. He married a woman outside the entertainment industry, and together they have 2 young children, his greatest source of strength and happiness. Still, his diabetes forced him to make significant lifestyle changes, limiting his public activity and requiring frequent hospital checkups. From time to time, he attends Grange Hill reunions, his hair now gray, his frame heavier, but his kind smile unchanged. Today, at 49 years old, Erkan Mustafa continues to live in London, working freelance in the media industry and collaborating with E4 on music and nostalgia programs. His estimated net worth is around $500,000, mostly from television royalties and event appearances. Though his appearance has changed, in the hearts of fans, Roland Browning remains the same sincere, gentle boy from the golden age of Grange Hill. Simone Nylander as Janet St. Clair. Simone Nylander was born in 1969 in England. At just 13 years old, she was cast in Grange Hill, 1982, as Janet St. Clair, a gentle, intelligent schoolgirl who constantly walked the fine line between rebellion and obedience. Over 5 seasons, Janet became a symbol of 1980s British schoolgirls, innocent yet conflicted. The role made Simone a beloved face among young audiences, turning her into one of the brightest teenage stars on British television. After leaving Grange Hill, Simone tried to shed the image of the model student. She appeared in EastEnders and several small stage productions, but her acting career never reached the breakthrough she had hoped for. As the glow of youth faded, Simone faced a harsh reality. The film industry no longer needed her as it once did. The loss of public attention pushed her into deep emotional crisis. That painful shift, from being a nationally recognized face to just another person in the crowd, led her into years of depression. She married young and had a daughter, but the marriage eventually ended quietly in divorce. Simone withdrew from the entertainment world, working behind the scenes before later becoming a talent agent. Yet the sadness of lost fame never left her. For a time, she underwent therapy and avoided all media appearances. Illness didn't rob her of her talent, but it did take away the confident smile that once defined her. Now, at age 56, Simone Nylander lives quietly in London with her grown daughter. Her estimated net worth is around $400,000, mostly from her work as a talent agent and old royalties. Her skin is wrinkled now, her face weary from time, but in her eyes still flickers the resilient spirit of Janet St. Clair, the girl who once captured Britain's heart. Dulice Liecier as Precious Matthews. Dulice Liecier was born on April 7, 1965 in Stepney, London. At 16 years old, she joined Grange Hill, 1981, as Precious Matthews, a bold, confident student unafraid to stand up for justice and self-respect. Across 5 seasons and more than 80 episodes, Dulice became one of the first prominent black faces of the series, helping to redefine how British television portrayed racial diversity. After leaving Grange Hill, Dulice went on to appear in The Bill EastEnders, and most notably the James Bond film The Living Daylights, 1987, where she played CIA agent Ava. Though she didn't win awards, the role made her one of the most recognized black actresses in late 1980s Britain. But off-screen, her life was far from easy. During a stunt scene, she suffered a serious neck injury that forced her to take months off work. When she returned, the roles were fewer, opportunities scarcer, and she eventually turned to theater to sustain her career. Despite professional setbacks, Dulice found happiness in her personal life. She married a man outside the entertainment industry, and the relationship brought her peace after years of struggle. Occasionally, she attends film and television events, sharing her journey as a pioneering figure for Black British actresses. Now, at 60 years old, Dulice Liecier lives in London, occasionally teaching acting to young students. Her estimated net worth is around $600,000, mostly from royalties and teaching. Time has silvered her hair, but her eyes remain as sharp and confident as Precious Matthews once was, the girl who dared to stand up not just on screen, but in her real life as well. Time has transformed the stars of Grange Hill into very different people, older, weary, and sometimes more tragic than the characters they once played. Yet in every wrinkle lies a memory of that unforgettable youth. Who was your favorite Grange Hill character back in the day? Leave a comment below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to discover more surprising then and now stories.